let's talk about what led up to this whole situation a little bit. So originally, you were on the Biggie task force, not the Tupac task force.
That's correct.
Now, Voletta Wallace was suing the LAPD, claiming that they had something to do with the murder of Biggie.
Right.
How much conversations did you have with Voletta?
Nothing during the investigation. We were prohibited from that because of the fact that she's got a civil lawsuit against the city. Mm-hmm. It creates a conflict of interest, because if we go to her and begin to ask questions or provide information or anything like that, her attorneys could then claim that we're trying to coerce or interfere with the civil process. And that applied to Little Cease and Eugene Deal and all of the witnesses that were potentially going to be witnesses on behalf of the plaintiffs, on behalf of Voletta Wallace's estate. So we couldn't approach any of those guys because of that perceived conflict of interest.
Okay. Did you speak to her afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay, when?
After I retired, right before I published the book, I wanted her and Afeni to be the first to know that new information was coming out, and that I wanted them to be apprised of that before it actually went public. So I went out to Pennsylvania, met with Voletta, and then...
okay, so you went out to Pennsylvania, met with Voletta Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how that conversation went.
It was very, I guess, bittersweet in the fact that I was honored to meet her and finally be able to sit down and speak with her about her son's death and all of the drama that had transpired over the years from the investigative standpoint. She was extremely gracious. There was just a certain spirit about her that made you feel really comfortable. Even though she would have perceived me as like potentially the adversary.
Now, this was after her civil case was dropped.
Yes.
Right. Well, it was dismissed by the court, right?
Correct. They retracted the case. So her own attorneys withdrew the case because I think that they had come to the conclusion that they were just throwing good money after bad.
Got it. They weren't able to prove that the LAPD conspired somehow to kill her son.
Every step of the way from 2002 to 2010, that was just a constant struggle for them to continually reinvent their lawsuit in order to figure out a way to get the LAPD to settle. But when the LAPD was, adamant, we're not settling for a dime, that's when they eventually said, we're going to have to just shut this down. We've been chasing it for 8 years.
Any idea how much money she spent on that lawsuit?
I know it's in the millions.
She spent millions.
Yeah. Well, her and the efforts of her attorneys, they're putting some of their own money into this also, their time and energy and billable hours.
Yeah. I mean, well, she obviously inherited Biggie's catalog and everything else like that,
sure.
Along with the kids. So she had the money to spend, but still, who wants to spend millions of dollars for something that's going nowhere? And you're having to deal with the emotional, turmoil of this month after month, having to dig all this up and deal with all this again and so forth.
I felt really bad because I felt like she didn't really know everything that she should have known about what was going on in her own lawsuit. I don't think her attorneys kept her directly appraised of all the ins and outs. And, but I believe that she was just chasing the truth and, what she was hoping to find some truth through this whole, process. And it had to be really frustrating when your perceptions of the truth continually get undermined by information that conflicts with that truth. So I think it was really tough. I don't think the money really meant all that much. I think that she'd have spent a lot more if she thought it was going to accomplish that goal.
I mean, from your point of view, was LAPD at all involved with the murder?
Absolutely not. We did, investigatively, there's no such thing as a perfect investigation. We make mistakes. And, so there's things that we should look back and say, we probably could have done this or that better. But as far as the allegations being lodged against the department, fucking ridiculous. I mean, it's so easy to it really is. It's really clear and easy to demonstrate how these allegations had no basis from day one.
From your point of view right now, December 2023, who do you think killed Biggie?
I think Poochie was involved. I think Suge Knight orchestrated it through his, at the time, girlfriend / baby mama. I think she was the intermediary between Suge and at least one of the co-conspirators. I do believe Poochie was directly involved. There may have been an additional person who was maybe acting as a lookout, because that makes the most sense considering the circumstances of the shooting. He may not have acted alone, but those are the three people that I'm very confident were involved.
Okay, and Poochie's dead.
Poochie's dead.
And Suge's still alive, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And his baby mother's still alive as well.
That's correct.
But I don't think she's talked recently.
She actually has immunity on that case.
Oh, she does?
She does. Yeah, she was offered immunity for her involvement in identifying the other two co-conspirators and for providing information and then working with law enforcement to try to further that.
But ultimately, that went nowhere.
It ultimately went nowhere.
Right.
You know, there was an attempt to get Suge to make some incriminating statements, but, you know, I think he was smart enough to realize that maybe I'm being set up.
Oh, she tried to set him up to snitch on himself, basically?
Yeah, members of the task force along with her cooperation.
Wow.
So that didn't go anywhere. But again, I mentioned immunity in her case, unlike Keefe D, who never actually had immunity.
Right. We'll talk about that.